Imagine a lawyer standing in front of the nation, raising his right hand and swearing an oath to faithfully execute the laws of the United States. Within hours of taking that exact oath, the new Attorney General, Todd Blanche, faces a legal and ethical collision that has no precedent in the history of the American justice system. He is walking directly into an immediate conflict between his constitutional duties and the personal political demands of the president who appointed him. The evidence of this impending collision is already sitting on his desk. It involves the federally mandated release of the highly guarded Jeffrey Epstein files. It involves a highly questionable financial settlement, where the President of the United States is essentially on both sides of the lawsuit. And it involves the unprecedented deployment of federal monitors to local polling stations based on claims of election fraud that even former Republican law enforcement officials call completely baseless. The question tonight is no longer whether the Justice Department will face a crisis of independence. The question is how quickly that independence will be dismantled. We are looking at a Department of Justice that is being fundamentally rewired from the inside out. And to understand exactly how this machinery is being dismantled, we do not need to rely on anonymous insiders, partisan critics, or vague political rumors. We only need to look at the stark warnings coming from a man who used to run the department himself. Alberto Gonzales served as White House counsel and later as Attorney General under President George W. Bush. He is a conservative lawyer who navigated a tumultuous era at the Justice Department. And right now, he is looking at the incoming Attorney General and sounding an alarm about the erosion of credibility and the survival of the rule of law. The first immediate test for Todd Blanche is not some abstract policy debate, it is a strict legal mandate regarding the Epstein files. Congress passed a law requiring the release of these documents. The law is clear, the obligation is clear, and as the head of the Justice Department, Blanche has the unilateral power to release them. The only person on earth who can step in and stop the Attorney General from releasing those files is the President of the United States. If Thursday arrives, the court date passes, and those documents remain hidden from the public, it will not be because of a bureaucratic delay. It will be because the President actively intervened to stop the release. This brings us to the core contradiction of Blanche's new reality. During his confirmation hearings, 49 senators voted against him, arguing he was fundamentally unfit and unqualified for the position. They questioned his independence. Now the moment of truth has arrived. If the president orders him to suppress the Epstein files, violating a law passed by Congress, what does the Attorney General do? According to former Attorney General Gonzales, there is only one legally and ethically sound response. You look the president in the eye and say that you have an obligation under the oath of office to release the files. You remind the president that your oath is to the Constitution and to the laws passed by Congress, not to a political party, and certainly not to the personal whims of the chief executive. And if the president refuses to back down, you resign. You resign because the alternative is remaining in office in direct violation of your oath. This is the ultimate test of courage. Will Todd Blanche stand his ground and ensure that the victims of Jeffrey Epstein finally get the justice and transparency they deserve, or will he fold under pressure from the Oval Office? If you want to understand the forces reshaping our legal system through clear, fact-driven investigations like this one, subscribe to the channel now. But the Epstein files are only the beginning of the crisis inside the Justice Department. We need to look closely at a financial arrangement that defies every standard principle of legal ethics. Before his confirmation, Todd Blanche committed to rescinding what has been called the Anti-Weaponization Fund, a fund involving nearly $1.8 million. This fund has been targeted by the Justice Department, and there are deep concerns that individuals involved in the January 6th riot might somehow gain access to or benefit from these funds. The underlying details of this financial maneuvering reveal a staggering conflict of interest. We are looking at a scenario where the President of the United States was effectively on both sides of a legal case. Before taking office, he was suing the Department of Justice as a private individual. Now that he is the President, he controls the very department he was suing, and his chosen Attorney General is the one managing the settlement. Let that sink in. The plaintiff and the defendant are ultimately controlled by the same person, and the resulting settlement is designed to benefit the President and his family. When Alberto Gonzales was asked about the legitimacy of this kind of settlement, his assessment was blunt. He called it very questionable. The idea that a sitting president can leverage the Justice Department to finalize a deal that benefits his own family is unprecedented in modern American history. During the confirmation process, several senators expressed deep skepticism about this exact arrangement. To secure their votes, Todd Blanche provided written assurances. He promised that the Justice Department would handle the matter ethically and that the funds would not be misused. The senators who caved and accepted these written promises felt satisfied enough to vote for his confirmation. But the reality of how these promises hold up under pressure is an entirely different story. Gonzalez, drawing on his years of experience at the highest levels of government, warned that a very smart group of lawyers will actively look for ways to work around those written assurances. The president and his legal team have a long history of finding loopholes, challenging agreements, and pushing the boundaries of executive power. If the courts cannot find a way to prevent this settlement from moving forward, the written promises Blanche gave to Congress may turn out to be completely worthless. The idea that individuals who stormed the Capitol, individuals who were prosecuted under the rule of law as rioters, might in any way benefit from Department of Justice funds in the future is abhorrent. It is contrary to the fundamental principles of the rule of law. Yet, this is the environment the new Attorney General is expected to navigate. He is caught between the written promises he made to the Senate and the relentless demands of the president and his family. The tension is baked into the very structure of the deal. The Justice Department is supposed to represent the interests of the American people, not negotiate financial settlements that enrich the chief executive who oversees it. This blatant conflict of interest raises a massive red flag about whose interests are actually being served in the halls of the Justice Department today. This brings us to a revealing moment that occurred before Todd Blanche even secured the job. It was a moment during his congressional hearings that many people witnessed but few fully understood. While answering questions under oath, Blanche made a slip of the tongue that exposed a dangerous misunderstanding of his new role. He referred to himself as the president's lawyer, before quickly correcting himself to say he would be the lawyer leading the Department of Justice. That was not just a minor verbal stumble. That single mistake perfectly captures the entire crisis of credibility currently engulfing the department. The Attorney General is not the President's personal defense attorney. The Attorney General is the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States. Yes, the Attorney General is a member of the President's cabinet. The President is elected by the American people to pursue specific law enforcement priorities, and the Attorney General is absolutely part of the President's team in executing those broad policy goals. But there is a massive structural difference between pursuing policy and acting as a personal shield for the President. The tension inherent in the job is that the Attorney General holds an additional overriding responsibility to the Constitution and to the laws passed by Congress. The mandate is to investigate and prosecute wrongdoing without political favoritism and without personal loyalty interfering with the facts. When an Attorney General forgets that distinction, the justice system stops being a blind arbiter of the law and starts becoming a weapon for the executive branch. Alberto Gonzalez pointed out this exact tension. He noted that every Attorney General must remember the difference between serving the administration's legitimate policy goals and acting as a personal fixer for the president. The senators who voted to confirm Todd Blanche were supposed to evaluate whether he had the integrity, the courage, and the personal fortitude to understand that difference. They were supposed to determine if he possessed the backbone required to stand up to the president when a request crosses the line from policy priority into illegal interference. Gonzalez explicitly stated that he hopes the full weight of history will fall upon Todd Blanche, forcing him to understand the ultimate responsibility he holds. But hoping for courage is not the same as seeing it demonstrated. We have to look at the history of the past few years, the performance of the individuals involved, and the decisions that have led us to this exact moment. A person would have to be naive to ignore the track record of this administration when it comes to demanding loyalty over legal independence. Until proven otherwise, the American public is forced to wait and see if the new Attorney General will faithfully execute the laws of the country, or if that momentary slip of the tongue during his hearing was actually a dark preview of exactly how he intends to govern. When the line between the president's personal interests and the nation's legal interests is erased, the foundation of the justice system begins to crack, and those cracks are already starting to show in how the department approaches the most fundamental democratic process of all. Those cracks in the foundation lead directly to the issue of election integrity. We are seeing a deliberate and coordinated effort to cast doubt on the electoral process, and the Justice Department is being pulled right into the middle of it. The president has been publicly and relentlessly claiming that there is massive fraud occurring in several states, specifically targeting places like California and Michigan. These claims are not backed by evidence. They are baseless assertions designed to undermine public confidence in the vote. But the administration is not just talking about fraud, they are taking action, sending Department of Justice monitors to polling sites around the country based on these manufactured concerns. This is a profound escalation. The presence of federal law enforcement monitors at local polling stations can have a chilling effect on voters and local election workers. When Americans see the Justice Department being deployed to police polling sites based on the baseless grievances of a political candidate, they have every right to be worried. They should be deeply concerned that the vast power of federal law enforcement is being weaponized for the president's personal political purposes, specifically to impact or dispute election results. Again, we can turn to the perspective of Alberto Gonzalez, a man who knows intimately how elections and federal oversight are supposed to work. He stated clearly that the American people should be alarmed by any president using the Department of Justice for any political purpose relating to elections. Gonzalez is not alone in this assessment. The former Attorney General William Barr, along with Chris Krebs, the former head of cybersecurity for the nation, have both unequivocally stated that the claims of massive election interference that cost Donald Trump the previous election are simply false. These are conservative officials appointed by Republican administrations telling the public that the system works. Gonzalez reiterated his confidence in our election system. He acknowledged that no system is absolutely perfect, but the American electoral infrastructure is highly secure. He expressed complete confidence that the upcoming elections, both in November and in 2028, will be lawful and legally sound. But he also issued a stark warning. We must all remain on high alert for any artificial suggestion or baseless suspicion about election interference. When the president creates a false narrative of fraud and then uses his newly appointed attorney general to send federal monitors to investigate that phantom fraud, it creates a dangerous feedback loop. The Justice Department is supposed to protect the right to vote, not serve as a tool to validate the political paranoia of the executive branch. This goes far beyond partisan politics. It touches the very core of how a democracy functions and survives. If the public loses faith in the Justice Department's neutrality during an election, the damage could take generations to repair. So we arrive at the central contradiction that opened this investigation. We have an incoming Attorney General who swore a solemn oath to the Constitution, immediately facing a series of legal emergencies where his boss expects him to prioritize personal loyalty over the written law. The evidence establishes a terrifying pattern, from the legally required release of the Epstein files to a deeply questionable $1.8 million settlement benefiting the president to the deployment of federal monitors based on entirely baseless election fraud claims. The traditional guardrails are being systematically dismantled. What remains completely unknown is whether Todd Blanche will actually find the courage to say no when the Oval Office calls with an illegal command. We know exactly who holds the authority. The Attorney General has the unilateral power to release the Epstein documents. The President has the power to unlawfully interfere. If the documents are ultimately suppressed, the responsibility will fall squarely on Blanche's shoulders, and his only honorable exit will be immediate resignation. The consequences of this institutional erosion are already happening right in front of us. The justice system is slowly being transformed into a shield for the executive branch and a weapon against its political rivals. This story matters far beyond the daily headlines because once the absolute independence of the Justice Department is destroyed, the rule of law becomes nothing more than a suggestion. The full weight of history is falling on this administration right now. We will continue to track every suppressed document and every controversial decision, and if you want to follow the facts wherever they lead without political spin, subscribe to the channel today to support independent, fact-driven reporting.